but yeah, it's
Special.
like
That's pretty much how you can describe it.
yep, and
Constantly.
What interests you in peak? What are you guys interested in?
Well, like around every month or 2 months, we get to learn about something new, and so it's a great learning experience because, and like you get to be yourself, be creative.
Awesome.
And that's
Cool. What are some topics you've learned about so far? Yes, sir.
We have done improv and
Improv. I do that every day. Kidding. Go ahead.
So it's like it's a better version of school for me. Also because there is certain things the teachers just give what the book tells you.
Right.
They don't try to make it to what the student needs, and also it is kind of just you do this and then you're done.
Okay.
It isn't kind of more that you need to do for it. You got to do a lot more in peak than you have to do in normal school day.
Okay, and it's more interesting the way it's delivered for you? Okay, awesome. What do you think? What do you want to share?
For me, I feel peak is a way for me to get away from boring math books and having to listen to your orchestra teacher teach you how to play your violin just right. It gets you kind of out of the school campus.
Cool. You feel inspired. Is that what you're trying to say? Awesome. We need inspired people. What's your thoughts on peak? Yeah, in the blue t-shirt right there. Yeah.
My thoughts on peak is you're surrounded by people who have the same thinking progress as you, who are usually bored with just like sitting around in a classroom just doing work.
Okay.
And you feel much more livelier. The people are much more livelier, not just like brain.
All right. You're coming alive. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. One more, and then we're going to start talking about food systems. What do you think? What do you want to share about peak? Me? Yeah.
It's a lot more hands-on than normal school. Because in normal school, they just tell you to do something and then you do it. In this, they teach you how to do it, and then you add on to how you do it.
Awesome. Great. All right. So today, here, I get to talk with you guys about food systems. When I say the word food system, what do you think I'm talking about? Yes, sir.
How we get food from farmers to grocery stores to our tables.
Right, and elaborate. What happens after it gets to our tables? It goes where? In our bodies. Then what happens? What are the implications of what we put in our bodies? And then what happens with food that we don't finish off our plate? Yeah, it can go in the trash. Are there alternatives for that?
You can feed
Okay, you can repurpose it to somebody else who's hungry. What else could you do? You can compost it. What else can you do? Yeah. You could feed it to animals. You could feed it to a dog, to pigs, to another creature. All right. Okay, so you can get microbial contamination, bad microbes, bad bacteria, right, that can make somebody sick from that. But what else? Have you guys heard of the term climate change?
Yes.
Okay, what is the big thing that's being emitted that we want to lessen? CO2 or methane. It's basically greenhouse gases. It's a whole series of gases, carbon dioxide, methane. So that is the problem where we don't want to put less and less things in the landfill because they're going to be emitting more greenhouse gases anyway. So, okay, get that? This is my little slide that talks about that. So you guys hit the nail on the head. You've got the production, which is on the farm, right? That's showing an apple tree. So there's an apple tree producing. Then you process it, turn it into maybe an apple pie, right? And then you transport that apple pie to wherever it's going to be sold. You sell it, whether it's at a farmer's market or a grocery store or in a restaurant. Somebody's going to enjoy that apple pie, right? And then you eat it. That's the person eating the apple pie. Then you have a little bit left over, and that's what we just talked about. What happens to that stuff that's left over? We got to be as responsible as possible for that because of what we just spoke about. So, okay, I'm going to ask you another question here. What are some things that we need to think about as humans for the next 50 years in terms of our food system? What are some pressures that exist? Yes?
Not having enough and trying to fill with something.
Say that louder.
Not having enough and filling the stuff in that we don't have.
Okay, so not having enough food to feed everybody, right? Any other things that you can think of? Yep.
The growing population.
The growing population, absolutely. That brings me to my next slide. See, this is what I'm doing. I'm just making you guys sort of prompt me. You're going to get me through my slides. You guys know that currently we have about what's our current population? 7.7 billion people on the planet. We're expected to be about 9.7 billion people on the planet by 2050. Between 9.7 and 10 billion. That's a huge percentage of growth. And then by 2100, which is way projecting out there, over 11 billion people. It's already starting to feel a little bit crowded, right, in certain places when you get into, how many of you guys have been to big cities before? Yeah, and even Bozeman's getting more crowded than it was 25 years ago. It's way different. So how are we going to feed that increasing population? Yeah?
Need more farmers so that they can produce more.
More farmers. Do you guys, what's the average age of the American farmer right now? Does anybody, what? Nope, I heard 25 to 34. I'm asking for the average age of the American farmer. Somebody take a guess, back there.
60.
It's high 50s, like 58 to 60 is the average age of the American farmer. So, you're absolutely right. We need more farmers. We need more people who are producing food, especially young farmers. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
We might also need to consider having it into a multi-pact area by skyscrapers that have pure farming levels with the lights and everything.
Oh my gosh, I like this group. So multiple ways of producing food. So you're talking about urban agriculture. Are we thinking about vertical growing systems? Are we thinking about rooftop growing systems?
Vertical. Like
Both.
large
I have a saying with my students. In fact, James, I see in the back of the room. Hi, James. I don't, maybe you've heard me say this, James, but there's not one silver bullet that's going to help us with our food future. There's what, James? Oh, maybe I haven't used it in the class James is in. It's silver buckshot, you guys. You know the difference between a bullet and buckshot? Okay, never mind. Maybe it's a bad analogy. But anyway, we need multiple solutions. We need a lot of different solutions for how we're going to have a sustainable food future with this growing population that's happening on planet Earth, right? All right, what are some other problems that we know that exist in the food system? That one I'm going to skip. Oh, you guys brought that one up. We just talked about the one about the landfill. Okay, question. I'm going to ask a different question for you guys. How much food do you think is wasted in America in general?
Too much.
How much? What percentage? Say from 0 to 100%. How much food is wasted? Yes, sir, right there.
28%.
You're getting warm. Yes. You overshot a little bit. You're getting closer.
47?
You're too high.
Oh.
40. All right. And that's an approximate, so you guys are probably all right. So basically, that's it. We waste about 40% of the food, and it's wasted at different points along the food chain. So some is wasted in the field. It's not harvested. There just wasn't enough capacity to harvest it, or there wasn't an outlet for the farmer to sell that food to, so it gets plowed back in. But in America, most of our food is wasted at the consumer level. So for us, the problem mostly exists with us and our habits. So that's something that we can all personally change, is to be really committed to only taking enough food that we'll eat and not wasting it, right? And if we do end up having excess food, there's that priorities of places where we put it. We can first see if somebody else wants to eat it. Second, can we feed it to a pig? Third, can we compost it? And then the last decision that we should be making is putting it in the landfill, right? but the very first thing you do is reduce your food waste. Yeah.
Well, we're saving it, would we even higher up there, because we would always save it.
It wouldn't be waste then, right? So if you're actually just, if you had a big meal and you're saving leftovers for tomorrow, that's not waste yet. That's still food that you're gonna eat. So we're not gonna call that waste. All right. So there's also a lot of problems that we see in the food system that relate to our environment. And I know you guys care deeply about the environment, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think is one of the problems that exists in our environment related to our food system? Yes, sir.
Overlaid food system. Well, I mean, a lot of the environment, like some forests that provide a lot of food, are being decreased rapidly. Like they're being cut down.
So you actually are really bringing up a really important point that this slide helps to show. And this is where humans have impacted our natural environment in order to grow food. And you're bringing up a really important point about the clearing of rainforests, particularly, you guys have heard about the big Brazilian forest fires that happened over the summer. Those were largely being cleared for grazing of animals in that system. So they're changing the ecosystem from a rainforest system into a grassland system in order to have increased grazing area for agriculture, okay? Why might that not be a good idea? Yes?
Because the Amazon forest is one of the biggest producers of oxygen. So
Really
it gets rid
important.
of the CO2 and produces oxygen for everyone else.
Right. From that carbon perspective that we were talking about earlier, the greenhouse gas emissions thing, a lot of our really forested lands actually hold on to carbon for us. And when we're burning them, we're releasing all that carbon. And when they're breathing living forests, they're also able to sequester or capture more carbon. So keeping it in that type of system is actually really important. What's another reason the rainforest is so important? Yes, sir.
It's a lot more important than grazing land because I heard that like if a cow ate 100 pounds of corn, we wouldn't get as much nutrients as we would from the cow than 100 pounds.
Right, so that nutrient conversion thing, if you actually are eating the plant versus feeding the plant to the cow to give you calories, it's more efficient for you to directly eat that plant. That's actually a very sophisticated point. So thank you for sharing that. What else?
It's home to a lot of animals and creatures.
Really important. That term I want you guys to get super familiar with is biodiversity. You've heard this before? The rainforests are home to so much biodiversity, whether it's animal biodiversity, plant biodiversity, or even at the microbial level. There's so much we're learning about that invisible world of microbes that's so critically important to how we all function. Excellent answers. Yeah, so, go. Oh, you'll think of something in a minute. I know you will.
So about a million years from now, and if we cut down all the forest, we might have more food, but then they'd be like facing not having enough wood and stuff.
Okay, so, there's actually, for wood production, you can actually control wood production where you actually there's a whole business around agroforestry, so you can actually grow trees for lumber, for paper, and that's a whole other area. So we can kind of do that in areas that maybe are less abundant for biodiversity and use different land to do that, but excellent point. Yes, sir.
Whenever the cattle go on it, they will break up the land that's next to it that has very little grasses on it, and besides, the trees can't really grow in there.
Wait, say that one more time. You're talking about the cattle that are breaking up the land.
Yeah, they break it up so then there's no good rooting in all of the soil.
You're bringing up a super interesting point too, because there's been a lot of research done that is showing that the proper, if you're really thinking about proper and ecological grazing practices, cattle actually can be beneficial to the soil as long as your numbers are right, that they're not overpopulating the land, right? Because there's this fine tipping point to where it's beneficial to the soil to where it can be detrimental to the soil. So you guys are really hitting on a lot of sophisticated concepts around our food system. I'm just blown away. What's that?
Maybe we should go to.
I think you should go to college, and we're going to talk about what you should study when you come here too. So yeah, this is one that I think is a really important thing for you guys to understand too, and I'm sure you already do. But soil is such an important resource for us. And this quote, I think, for me sums it up. It says, despite all of our accomplishments, our existence depends on a 6-inch layer of topsoil and the fact that it rains. Really, when it comes down to it, we need to be able to feed ourselves as the human species, right? We have to be able to feed ourselves. So we need to do so in a manner that future generations can continue to feed themselves. And these resources are so critically important for us to be able to continue doing so. Taking care of our soil and taking care of our water, really important. And what we're learning about soil is just mind-boggling. How many of you care about microbes, care about bacteria, fungi? Okay, good, because you should. It's the coolest stuff on the planet. And
We went into some soil pits.
oh, did you? So you got to see the mycorrhizal fungi in there? That's amazing. That's like, it's this whole, have any of you guys ever read the book Horton Hears a Who? You know that one, that Dr. Seuss book? To me, when I start learning about soil, I start thinking about Dr. Seuss's Horton Hears a Who, because there's this whole world that exists in the soil microbial world that's talking to each other, connecting to each other. It's just amazing. Okay, so you guys, when it comes to health, what do you think is important in terms of our food system? What do we need to be paying attention? What are some problems that exist related to food and health that you guys know about? I'm going to call somebody. I don't think I called you yet. Go ahead.
Obesity.
Obesity, right? That's a pretty significant problem. We've got about over 30% of the people in America are obese at this point. That's a real problem. What are some problems that obese people may have, some health problems that they may have that others may not? Yes, ma'am.
Clogged arteries.
Clogged arteries, so heart disease is a really important one. What else?
High blood pressure.
High blood pressure, absolutely. What else? Yes.
Higher chance of heart attacks.
Yeah, definitely. Higher chance of heart attacks.
Diabetes.
Yes, type 2 diabetes. You guys know there's 2 types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2? So it's type 2 diabetes that is linked to obesity. So these are really important, critical issues. And the crazy thing is, you guys, is that you guys experienced a food venue that's geared towards people living in poverty today by going to the Fork and Spoon. People living in poverty have a higher risk for obesity. And it seems like that shouldn't be. Can you guys help me figure out why? What is going on? Why are people who can't afford to buy food having higher rates of obesity? Yes?
Because what they can afford is usually like fast food, and fast food is usually
Right. We don't have an equitable food system for people who are living in poverty versus people who have money. And that's not right. There's this whole concept called food justice that we talk about a lot here in our program at MSU. That equitable access to healthy, culturally appropriate foods is really important. Yes, sir?
The poor people might get so hungry that they just overeat and keep overeating that they become obese.
Yeah, and it really kind of has to do with what those foods are that are easily accessible to people living in poverty. And there have been a lot of studies done that when you look in, have you guys ever heard of the concept, the term food desert? Has anybody ever heard of the term food desert?
I talked about it at HMS, I know. Yeah, it's a food desert.
In the back, what do you think, right there, what do you think a food desert is?
It's a place where there's not enough food to sustain the population.
Yeah, it's a place that there's not easy access to healthy, nutritious foods. So in Montana, the food deserts can exist in super rural locations. And on a lot of our Indian reservations in Montana, there's food desert situations where there's not easy access to healthy foods that sustain good well-being. So that's a real problem. And we also see food deserts in really urban locations, in neighborhoods and urban locations where the grocery store no longer is there. The grocery store has moved out to the suburbs, and all that's left is maybe a corner store that sells like candy and chips. And if that's your only food that's easily accessible, are you getting good nutrition?
No.
Definitely not. So you can see there's a kind of some broken pieces of our food system in terms of access and health. Yes, sir.
Another problem is a lot, like there's some places, like a lot of places in the U.S. where they have a wide variety of food, so a lot of people are just going to overeat. Whereas in other places, there's not a lot of food, so they're not healthy.
Right. So the difference between like too much on your plate versus not having enough. Yeah, and definitely you guys have noticed in some restaurants they serve like these heaping portions that literally they could sustain me for probably 3 meals, yet they're giving a portion that's way too large for good health. So, and I think a lot of restaurants are starting to pay attention to that more, giving more appropriate serving sizes, because that doesn't do anybody any good to have that way abundance of food on their plate. So I want you guys, before, we don't have much time today, do we? What do we have? 41. So you guys have to, you're picking the bus up at 2?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk briefly about the MSU program that is here, which is the Sustainable Food and Bioenergy System Program. So how many of you like the topic of food and nutrition? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you like the topic of ecology or environmental science? Raise your hand. How many of you like to garden? How many of you are interested in animals like cows or pigs or sheep? Okay. All right. So the Sustainable Food and Bioenergy Systems Program at MSU actually links 4 different departments. So it's linking the Food and Nutrition Program, which is in the Department of Health and Human Development. It links our Agroecology Program, which is the ecology of agricultural systems. So what soil and water and all of those important natural resources that we need to sustain food systems. It links up plant science, which is horticulture. How do you grow plants? How do you start a farm? That kind of thing. And it links up the animal and range science. So how do you raise animals in a sustainable manner? So our students are getting courses in all of these areas to learn about the whole food system, from the point of putting a seed in the ground to what do you do with food waste. So the whole system. And they're becoming, what I am so impressed with, is they are becoming systems thinkers. Because our problems of the future aren't easy problems. They're complex problems, and we need people that can think in systems and understand a whole system as complicated as our food system. So that's what this program does at MSU. And there's a couple of cool things about it. One is that our students run a campus farm called Town's Harvest Garden. How many of you guys how many did you say like to garden? Okay, so on our campus farm, our students are growing vegetables on 3 acres, and they're actually selling those vegetables to people, and they're bringing some of those vegetables to senior citizens who are living within a really finite budget, and they can't afford a lot of good food. So they're bringing the vegetables over to those seniors, and they donate a lot of the vegetables to the food banks. So there's a lot of good things that are happening with our students at Town's Harvest Garden. Here's a couple of photos from that. You can see some really pretty, gorgeous vegetables that get sold. They also sell the veggies at a farmer's market. And how many people here have been to a farmer's market? What do you like best about farmer's markets? Yes?
My favorite part is like how you can see how many people have agricultural land, how they're to generate the kind of markets. They don't just do vegetables, they do like toys.
Okay, so there's more things. Yeah. Why else do people like farmers markets? You had your hand up. Yeah. Why do you like farmers?
I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay. Who else? In the back there.
The person connection.
That's an awesome observation. You like that? You like being able to talk directly to the person that grew the food, to ask questions about it? That's a great perspective. Yeah, well, how about you?
The variety of foods that are there, like the food and the just the ways that people try to make money and their businesses that get those.
Awesome. Why do you guys, I'm going to ask you a new question now. Why do you think that it's valuable to know your farmer, to be able to have that one-on-one conversation with your farmer? What do you think?
I think it's valuable because you see like how they raised it, how they treated it, and what type of fertilizer they put on it, and you see it's good for food.
Okay, so you can ask them lots of questions about how they produce that food, and you can make that decision more clearly on if it's something you want to choose for you. What else might be really important about having that one-on-one relationship with your farmer? Yes, sir.
So you know, like who's behind the food that you buy, so you can know if you want to trust them or not, and therefore buy their food.
Okay, great. So this is part of what is concept that we call a community food system, and the importance of a community food system is such that it allows these relationships to develop so that people value one another a lot within your home community. So in Helena, how many of you guys know of any farms that exist in Helena? Have you ever visited a farm in Helena? Are there any farms in Helena? I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
What farms exist in Helena? Maybe you guys need to go tonight, go home and explore this topic. What?
I can't exactly remember the exact name, but I'm pretty sure it's called Stein Ranch.
Sebin Ranch? Okay. What do you think? There's a community garden. I've seen that community garden. Okay. And what do community gardens allow people to do? What?
They allow people to go in and grow food for themselves and
Yeah, so that's like if you don't have a spot in your own yard where you can create a garden, you can actually get a plot at the community garden and go grow some veggies there. Yes?
There's quite a bunch of bee farms in Helena. There's a good group of them up in the mountains. And our family owns like a 1,000-acre farm.
Wow, awesome. Yes, ma'am.
There's, I know there's like a Westmont farm.
Where do they grow? Is it a cattle or is it vegetables?
I know they do pumpkins.
Okay, okay. All right, so maybe that's a good question for you guys to explore is what is the Helena food system like? What foods are actually grown in and around Helena? Okay. One thing I wanted to share with you guys, and I think I'm gonna give this to you guys to talk about on the bus on the way back, but I have this activity that I think is really important for all of us because we've talked a lot about the big food system today, but there's this, in order to really understand our personal relationship with the food system, we have to kind of drill in closer to our own practices and behaviors. So there's this activity, it's called creating your own family food sovereignty plan. So does anybody know what the word food sovereignty means?
We haven't gotten that, but Alexis has an idea.
Alexis, what do you think?
Back in the Civil War, they had states choose whether they wanted to be free states or slave states, so maybe it's choosing how you want to grow your food.
Oh my gosh, you're so brilliant. So food sovereignty is the concept of self-determination about what your food system looks like. This term is being used a lot in Native communities right now because you guys aren't going to be here tonight, but on our Indian reservations, their food system was changed so dramatically after colonization and they were forced onto reservations, and that there's such a desire to return to the food system that supported their good health and well-being and having their own self-determination about what that food system looks like, rather than the food system that was forced upon them. Does that make sense? So it's really about choosing your personal food system. And we have a lot of choice in every day. What kind of choice do you guys have every day around food? Where are your choices that you experience each day?
I get to choose what eggs and boxes.
Okay, so at home, you get to open the cabinet up and you get to say, oh, am I gonna have Raisin Bran or Chex today? Maybe not, maybe it's something totally different. How about you? What are your food choices? What's that?
How much food?
How much food? That's certainly it. What about where you get food in your home community? Do you guys, how many of you guys walk to school? Does anybody walk to school? Are there any stores along the way that you stop in every now and then?
I walk home.
Do you ever stop to grab up something in a store? Food? So that's part of your personal food system, where you're getting food each and every day. You have one other thought?
I get to choose,
Okay. Yes.
The schools also let us choose breakfast and lunch. Like some days they'll be like, oh, you have hamburgers, cheeseburgers, and pizza, and today's special is this. And like in the mornings when we go to have breakfast, we choose maybe like a popcorn or nothing.
Okay, so you get to have.
Having bagels, we have to have one of these.
All right, so you get to choose the foods that are in front of you within the school meals program. Do you guys have any input on what they serve? Like, did they ever ask for like input from students on you guys like this, don't like that? What's really good? Is that a no? They're not asking?
They don't ask us, but I also noticed that the nutrition that we get is part of our meals as our friends. Is like there's one healthy choice that's there a lot. The salads, peanut butter, yogurt,
Okay. All right, so you guys are kind of getting the gist that you do experience a lot of food choices in your daily life, even as middle schoolers. And as you get older, their choices are going to become more and more. You're going to be deciding, when you're at MSU, you're living off campus after your freshman year, you're going to be going to the grocery store and deciding, or going to the food co-op, or going to the farmer's market, or finding your food from some avenue, and that's your personal food plan right there. So how can you create a personal food sovereignty plan that is about your values, about what you think is important in terms of where and how that food is grown? And you guys probably didn't hear a lot of the details in terms of like practices that are really sustainable, but that's when you dig in more and more, like you'll typically take an entire class on soils to learn about soils. You'd be studying soils for 15 weeks because there's that much content. And that's just introduction to soils. And you just take upper level soils classes. So you can dig super deeply into any one of these topics.
Yeah, Tanner.
I just wanted to say thank you for taking time out of your day to come and talk to us.
My pleasure. I dig middle school students.